last Sunday, October 23, I met with the son of Percy Lapid together with Mr. Roy Nabasa, his brother. And one of their requests was really for an independent medical exam to transpire. And right there and then, I sought the number of Dr. Fortune, Dr. Fortune. And I talked to her, and I requested her that we carry on with another autopsy of the body. Of course, there are limitations to a second autopsy on the bound body and bound ready, but nevertheless, she was able to carry on the autopsy. And there are some findings here which may seem remarkable also. And I've spoken to Roy Mabasa about this, but I think all of you will see it. Is it posted already? Okay. We will be posting the autopsy itself, the autopsy findings, in the DOJ page, so that all the members of media can look at this written report that we have right now. Okay, so I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Fortune to shed light on her findings regards to the autopsy conducted in June Villamor in Roma.
Well, my involvement here started on social media, where people usually ask me what I think of some controversial there. But formally, I was asked by Secretary Remulla, I think on Monday, we had a phone call, and I told him, yes, it can be done, what it takes. And first and foremost, I asked for an authorization because the Mabasa family themselves cannot actually, that's not what I need if I'm going to ask for a consent. And that was arranged. And Secretary Remulla had been very transparent about my needs and my questions. And in fact, if not for the information I got from DOJ's investigation, then I would not have gone this far, because I was prepared to just say this much. Okay, and I'll explain to you what has transpired. But it was brought to us finally on October 25 in the afternoon. But then at that time, I did not have that authorization letter yet. I did not want to open up the body without it. NBI went. So the body was brought to us by the Bureau of Corrections officials and turned over properly and so on. We signed for it. And then shortly after, NBI sent apparently a team to observe. But I said, no, I'm not going to examine the body yet. And I was also hesitant because they came with a full team of 2 doctors and about 3 others, including a videographer. We do not do autopsies like that. And I know that they had already seen the body themselves, so what's the point? We document our findings. Right? So anyway, the actual autopsy the following day in the morning, so this would be October 26. And it took us that whole morning, we finished by 11:30. And the body was well preserved, post-autopsy, post-embalmed. The embalming was good. We were expecting that formalin fumes would be overwhelming. We encountered that a lot. But this time around, the body was right for examination. Okay? And so we documented everything, the embalming sites, the autopsy, incisions, and all the details are in the report. Okay? That's why it's 6 pages long. It's very much detailed. I'll just focus on the front sheet where it has pathologic diagnosis and what we call the opinion. Alright? And so to summarize, the most pertinent findings would be, number 1, history of asphyxia by plastic bag suffocation. 2, pulmonary congestion, edema, and hemorrhages. 3, schistosomiasis of the liver. It's an incidental finding, it's a parasitic infection. I believe it comes from Leyte, Samar area, and that's kind of endemic in that area. Number 4, status post-autopsy. Number 5, status post embalming. Number 6, evidence of medical intervention consisting of a needle puncture mark on the dorsal right hand. Well, this is, I saw this on, zooming in on the pictures. And I'm not too sure at this point if the Bucor Hospital did this, because sometimes when you bring bodies to the hospital, they automatically try and look for a vein there. I don't have records of what they did, what they saw in that hospital, but this is not really that significant. All right, and then I have here an opinion, and it reads, this is the case of a 42-year-old male who was an inmate incarcerated at the New Bilibid prison when he was allegedly found unresponsive and pronounced dead at the NBP hospital on October 18, 2022. The cause of death was certified as, in quotation marks, dead on arrival, undetermined, for autopsy. The embalmed remains were autopsied on October 20, 2022 by the National Bureau of Investigation. A second autopsy was conducted on October 26, 2022. There is information that he expressed fear for his life shortly before his demise, and that he died from suffocation by means of a plastic bag over his head. The autopsy findings showed no gross morphologic cause of death, and this is consistent with the reported asphyxia. Limitations were encountered in the examination due to the postmortem interval, the previous embalming, and autopsy. Preliminary urine toxicology showed methamphetamine. Based on available information regarding the circumstances surrounding death, the manner is homicide. Okay, so when I was constantly discussing the case with Secretary Julia, and at first I said I did not find anything, meaning he was not sick of something serious, no significant injuries also. So external and internal findings were negative, and at first I was about to say that that's it, there's no cause of death, and the manner would be classified as what we call undetermined. However, information trickled in. I noted it here, and this is very important, that he had an inkling that he was in danger, and true enough, shortly after, he died. And this sense, this feeling of impending death actually was transmitted to someone, and this information is credible. So I have to consider that. So I was about to write as manner of death, probable homicide. However, again, additional information was that there's an account of someone now explaining how he died. And I remember Secretary Moya asking me, plastic bag. And I said, pwede. Actually, pwede. So when you look at a case like this, it's totality of evidence. When I refer to manner, it is how the person died. Cause would be why. Right? Everything, including the circumstances. And I really had to factor in the two things, that he knew he was about to die, and he did. And two, that someone actually offered an explanation of, cause. And taking everything into consideration, it is consistent. No morphologic findings, and yes, putting a plastic bag over one's head can be very effective.
Explain something later again after the questions.
Hello. Good morning, Secretary. Isa Umali po from PCW. Dahil po ba sa findings ni Dr. Fortune, di ba dati po nabanggit nyo may possibility of murder yung nangyari kay John Villamor. Ganun na rin po ba yung nakita nyo ngayon? Possible murder case na po ba ito?
we are now holding in custody in custody na ngayon ang 7 tao na marahil may kasama sa may alam sa nangyari sa kanya. At ito po ay ating hinahawakan na ngayon. Hindi pa sila tinatanong, ngunit aalamin natin. 7 tao po ito na ating tatanungin tungkol sa bagay nito. Dahil nagaganap ng mga huling araw, marami na po tayo nakakausap, marami na po nagpapaliwanag. At may 7 pa hong tao tayong ginawa na maaaring ito na ang magpapaliwanag at magtuturo na ang pagkamatay ni John Villamor ay isang hindi po aksidente, hindi po atake na natural, ngunit isa pong pinagplanuhang kamatayan. Kaya ito po ay malinaw na malinaw po ngayon. Kaya kakausapin po namin yung 7 tao.
Iba yung result dun sa autopsy ng NBI at sa findings po ni Dr. Fortun. Will this not create reasonable doubt dun sa criminal case against the perpetrators?
I'm not really sure na magkaiba. I have not actually seen the report of NBI. As I kept saying earlier, what they submitted was very sketchy. It was more of an internal office memo. It's not a technical autopsy report. I'm not sure kung magkaiba. Let me just comment that it, for them to have seen the body earlier, of course, nagkaroon ng changes. But at the same time, I appreciate the fact that may nakita pa ako. And that's why sa akin kasi it's really show me the body. And like for instance, yung ihi na nakuha. The bladder was intact, surprisingly. And it contained a lot of urine. Probably, sa amin, mga 40 ml. Dami na na. Hindi ko alam kung ano yung nakuha ng NBI because I was told that, kasi ang tanong ko, hindi niya ba nakita to? Kasama yan sa complete autopsy. Ang sabi sa akin, they aspirated daw. But really, what we do is we take out the bladder, everything there, the prostate, the testes. That is how you do a complete autopsy. There's another potential source of toxicology samples. The stomach. Again, to my disadvantage, it's not there anymore. And apparently, they took out the entire stomach. So, let's wait. I don't know when they're going to release their findings, if they're still doing histopathology as well and toxicology.
Or methamphetamine in the system. I think it's a very important finding that was not present in the first report. And this, actually, we are still planning to have a second laboratory examine the urine that is there. Kasi marami naman siya. I think that the exam for drugs or for the reactions sa urine did not exhaust all the possible material that we can have examined in the second laboratory in case Dr. Fortun wants to search for more clues. And we're willing to do that, and we will just look for the laboratory that can process it. We have the Percy Lapid case and the John Villamor case. Nag-intersect yung dalawa because John Villamor was an alleged co-conspirator in the death of Percy Lapid. But because John Villamor died also, then it's another case in itself. I think that we should not forget that we're not talking about a single person dying, but Dr. Fortun to have a second examination as requested by the family of Percy Lapid, because there are things that are qualifications that are attached to every job, and sometimes the experience is necessary for us to determine the trajectory of any investigation. There are advantages also to the fact that Dr. Fortun was already guided by myself in discussing the case because we're already conducting a pathological exam based on knowledge of what had transpired already. When the NBI came earlier, they came in much earlier, they came in blind, not knowing anything yet. But I don't think there's any consistency with their findings, except that she just found a little more. And that is, of course, the methamphetamine in the system and other things that probably, if compared, meron pagkakaiba. So this helps us explain a lot of things, and also reveals something about the way that the Bilibid runs when the person there had drugs in the system. The investigation is to push forward and further, and it will not stop here. Yung 7 pang kakausapin natin, andyan na sila para makausap ng ating mga kasama. 2 na lang kailangan namin makausap muli, yung 2 nasa PNP Custodial Center na persons of interest who are part of the narrative that we have been putting together based on the testimonies of the different persons that have been interviewed and questioned by the NBI and the police.
Hi Sir, Nella Lesmoras of PTV4. Sir, nabanggit niyo po kasi na this case is almost over. Yung mastermind po kaya dito sa krimen, kailan natin na mapapangalanan?
Ano yan eh, the NBI will file a case. NBI and PNP together, they may work together to file a case before the fiscal. And let them be the ones to close the theory. Kasi it's not my job to do that. My job is only to guide the investigation. Informed na po ang doctor of the possibility of foul play. During the first autopsy, wala pa yung dying declaration. During the first autopsy, wala pa yung ibang factors na pumapasok. So it is already an informed examination that brings to light so many things. Ganun lang po yun eh. It just came later, and that some information was not yet available at that time. So you're not talking about inconsistency, you're talking about developments that happened after. Hindi po inconsistency.
Sir, mas kumulo ba or did this make the investigation clearer kasi medyo hindi nagkatugma yung mga autopsy results?
Again.
Sir, can we safely say
Can you
na...
take off your mask so I can read your lips also while you speak?
Hi, sir. Sir, can we say po na posible bang mas kumulo yung investigation or did this re-autopsy make the investigation clear?
I think it made everything clearer. That you do not kick from any doctor. Hindi mo itatago sa kanila yan tapos you tell them to go blind. You inform them of what you know. That's the first basic rule so that they're guided while they're doing the examination. Ang problema kasi dyan, the first time that it was examined, wala pa yung dying declaration. It was not yet there. The dying declaration came in Thursday already after the autopsy of the NBI was conducted. Maraming factor na hindi po alam ng NBI yung kinonduct nila yung autopsy. And this time, because of the experience of Dr. Fortune, I think it's more extensive. Maybe she has more ways of arriving at conclusions when she examines them. She would not be the chairman of the Department of Pathology of the University of the Philippines if she did not know enough of her craft. The acting bureau director, so he will be guided by what we find inside. Pati yung mga affidavits na nakuha na namin, bibigyan namin ng kopya si acting bureau director para makita kung anong direksyon dapat gawin sa pagpapatakbo ng National Bilibid Prisons.
I share the information yun. Was it the PDL? Was it an official?
PDL.
A PDL po.
Yes. And this is a sworn statement. We're not talking about kwento. We're talking about a sworn statement.
Sir, now that we've kind of established that there was foul play dahil nga po yung plastic bag, ganyan. Sir, can we say na ito ay parang paraan para patahimikin si June Villamor with regards to the Percy Lapid case? I know that there are two separate cases.
Yes. Kaya nga, we're talking about 2 deaths already. We're not just talking about Percy Lapid. But it will bolster the whole theory. They're all tied together. Magkakasama po lahat yan, mga facts na yan.
Sir, last na lang po. Sir, last na lang po kahapon. Sir, nagre-request po sila na ipatrace yung mga tawag at yung mga text sa Mabasa family.
Yes. Ano, sa Mabasa family, I have to get their numbers. And I will have the NBI do that. We have the expertise to trace all of this information. We will first arrange a viewing for one of the relatives before we bring home the body to Leyte. I've spoken to them lengthily about this. May isang witness lang na ayaw ko talagang pauwiin pa kasi kailangan siya ma-secure. And we will give the proper burial to Jude Villamor, and we will assist them, the whole family, in this matter. Kasama po yan sa pag-aaral.
All inmates dying in custody, institutionalized, it should be investigated. We really could have lost this one if we did not do some semblance of an investigation. Look at what findings we've got. It's not just a matter of how the individual was killed. Please take note, it's also a health issue. That there is methamphetamine in jail, that was so shocking for me. And the other is that there is a parasitic infection. You know, these people die of communicable diseases as well. So wouldn't you want to check the jails? We don't want our inmates to be dying, right? They're supposed to be under state custody. Yes, wards of the state, they should not be dying. And they should not be killed, of course, like this. That's all. Thank you.
It's been very, very fast towards the Department of Justice. And we are finding out more than we bargained for. We are processing a lot of information right now. But what we're releasing is actually just about the case of the late Percy Lapid, which opened up everything. And of course, the case of Jude Villamor, who died. If we look at the account that was given us 20 to 21 minutes after he sent his dying declaration to his sister. Yung po yung nakakagulat dito. 20 to 21 minutes. Parang ganun lang. It's all it took for him to die. So, we will stand by our findings because I think we have done this. We've done a very thorough job. But we're not stopping here. Meron pa kaming kailangan kausapin. Pito, basta meron na tayong kailangan kausapin pa para kompleto po yung alam natin sa nangyari po sa bagay na to. And hopefully we learn our